Welcome to South by Southwest.
Thanks.
This isn't your first rodeo,
Antarctica,
is it?
but it's great.
It feels like that.
So freaking cold.
Especially coming from Tulum.
I know,
yeah,
right?
I'm not quite used to this
This
weather
is Texas,
anymore.
believe it or not.
Yeah, we're in Texas. So Jeremy, I just would love to hear a little bit about your journey to Web3, because the first time I heard about NFTs, I think you might have been the person that told me about NFTs, and I didn't even have any idea what they were at the time. But and you are also one of these people that I really admire, because you have this perfect balance of, I feel like, left and right brain functionality. You've got the artist, you've got the data. So yeah, tell us all about your journey here.
I think I got my first wallet in 2013. There's a friend of mine. We were in Chile. Usually he's here with me, Andy Elwood. He was like, "Dude, you need to come down to Chile and talk to these guys about something." I'm like, "What am I going to talk to him about?" He's like, "I don't know. You've got these drones that you've been making. Like, come talk about drones." And I was like, "Okay." I had no idea what I was getting into. And one of the students was really thankful, and he gave me a tip in Bitcoin. And he gives me this paper wallet, and I was like, far out, man. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I had no idea. And back in 2013, it was not easy to figure out how to use Bitcoin. I don't know if anybody here was around during that time. Yeah, it wasn't easy, was it? It's like, there wasn't no, like, YouTubes to go look and say, how do you open up a wallet? You know, it was really difficult. So,
Andy helped me too.
oh, you know Andy?
Wow.
No way. Wow, it's a small world. Yeah. You're probably with the tacos. He's always at South by Southwest with the tacos. But what I thought was really cool about it was like, this was a way for us to be able to rapidly send funds to people without having to be slowed down by the traditional systems, which I thought was really super cool. And so I think fast forward, I kind of gave up on it, to be honest with you. Yeah. And then maybe about 2016, I got back in. And Cody, my co-founder for the Ocean Currency Network, we started kind of really coming up with ideas of like, well, how could we actually create a token that would be worth something that could actually do something? Because every single one of those ICOs was 100% a rug pull for the most part, right? And we were like, well, I came from the startup world in the early 90s when I would go to parties and say to people, I would tell girls that I was working for an internet provider, and they were like, well, what's the internet, right? That's how old I am, kids. There wasn't an internet before me, right? And so I was kind of like watching the whole process, and I was like, this is happening exactly the way the .com era went. A lot of really great ideas, some of them not so great, a lot of them not so great, and then a lot of rug pulls. And so we thought, well, what if we could create something that could actually derive the value of a healthy ecosystem? Could we quantify a healthy ecosystem? Does anybody do that? And that's really where the whole thing kind of started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how do you? I mean, how do you put a value on fish in the sea or in coral reefs?
Well, I think there is a value, right? I mean, if we go fishing and we pull fish into our boat, we're going to go somewhere, and someone's going to buy that fish from us. So for us, our value is the extraction and the exploitation of the ocean. My advice was, what if we can actually use the life that exists inside the ocean and actually quantify the value over a period of time? And so what if we counted fish, and instead of removing them from the ocean, we said, well, we know that floating fish that's moving around is worth $100 at any given time. And then they have babies, and those babies have babies, and pretty soon you've got $1 billion worth of fish flowing. So instead of extracting it, could we actually cross-collateralize its value and borrow against the value that is detected in the ocean? And that became kind of the core thesis for Ocean Currency Network.
Mm-hmm. And how do you bring that all back around to art? Because Jeremy, you must look at Jeremy McKane's artwork. It's so beautiful. He does these amazing underwater photographs, which I just love. So how does it all connect? How did you make the pieces connect?
Well, I think artists for thousands of years, probably, I don't even know how long, but that have always used whatever medium that they had the capability, whether it was paint, whether it was drawing, whether it was performance. It was a way of connecting to humans and the feeling, the emotional connection, right? Because I can sit on this stage and I can tell you all these wonderful, terrible facts about the ocean, and that's not going to motivate you to do anything. But if you see a piece of work that actually makes you feel and you actually want to physically do something, that's a mission done. And I think we kind of underestimate sometimes how the impact of art and its role in society, and without it, there's a huge hole, and I think in the human fabric. And so I thought to myself, I wanted to tell a better story about the oceans. And I had a hard time getting data from the oceans. And so I realized that there was an opportunity to also create a business around identifying what was in there and then getting tools to get near real-time data analysis. I feel like we're going to take off. This is going to be that scene in Up.
We're going to the moon.
We're not going to have balloons. We're going to just take off here.
We're going to the moon,
We're all
Jeremy.
going to make it.
Wag me.
Yes.
So talk a little bit more about Ocean Currency Network, and is that a token? Is that something that we can start to exchange? What is the what are you going to do with that?
Long-term goal, we will have a currency that is actually based on the market cap of the life and the carbon sequestration systems that are actually based in the ocean. And that's something that can actually be quantified right now if you think about it, because right now there are carbon markets where carbon credits are traded. But you have to ask yourself, how do you know how much a carbon credit is worth? I laugh because the way that you actually find out how much a tree has actually sequestered in its lifetime is you actually burn it and you measure the weight of the carbon. That seems very counterproductive to me, right? So what if we could actually build sensors to actually measure the amount of carbon that's actually being drawn into the soil, and then get a near-time basis of what is actually happening? Because we might find that at certain times of the year, more carbon is actually being sequestered, less is being sequestered because of a number of factors. What are those factors? Well, we just don't know. This is why we say the Ocean Currency Network is a measurement as a service company, right? Our goal is to measure, because as any engineers in here, because everyone knows that Lord Kelvin said, if you want to improve something, you got to first measure it. Go around to your average scientist and say, hey, do you guys count fish? Nobody counts fish. But they've been doing this for thousands of years in indigenous cultures. And so all we're doing is taking what we know works for thousands of years and putting a Web3 spin on it.
Amazing. And talk a little bit about what you're doing in the oceans, like what oceans are involved in your projects, and what you're doing, what countries are you working with?
Yeah, so I work a lot in the British Virgin Islands. And so they've been really awesome about saying, hey, well, we want to protect our local ecosystem. How can we do it? And so we're working with them on a couple different ideas on how we could pilot a few projects. My company, the Ocean Currency Network, will actually be in the BVI first. We're actually talking to the government of Cousteau right now about actually doing some stuff there. Cousteau is actually really interesting because they have a beautiful reef. And it's probably one of the healthiest in the world. So if we're going to take a baseline of what should be, Cousteau is actually a great place to do it. I'm also on the board for Fabian Cousteau's Proteus project. I'm their technical advisor.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. That's a really fascinating project. I love it.
Yeah, it's basically the International Space Station underneath the ocean, right? And so Fabian previously spent 31 days underwater by saturating his body. And so the question is how long could we stay down underwater? They did, in I think the 31 days that they were underwater, they did, I think it was 2 years worth of scuba diving and research, because they were able to scuba dive for 8 hours a day. If anybody here is a recreational diver, you know that if you scuba dive for 8 hours, you're going to have some problems. And
so he was underwater in
31 days.
31 days underwater.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think like when you look at these different types of technologies, there are all different people doing different things. We even see this in the Web3 world, right? Everybody has projects. They're all kind of siloed off. What we're really trying to aim to do with the Ocean Currency Network, because of the fact that we're using Web3, is because really at the end of the day, like, what is blockchain? Like, if you ask your mom, hey, what is blockchain, and she doesn't know, you just say it's a network of truth and transparency. I was in the middle of Fiji in the Lao group, and I had gone to this island, and we're sitting around the Kava circle, and the chief asked me why I was there, and I explained to him this whole concept about blockchain, and he said, what's blockchain? I look around. There's a bunch of coconuts and stuff. There's not a lot of computers. So I said to him, you just previously told me that your money comes from the coconut grove. If I went and harvested all the coconut groves, I husked the coconuts, and then I came back and I told you that I would do that, last week, but I didn't do it, what would happen to me? And somebody said, well, we would tell you that you told a lie. I said, exactly. And then another person. I said, that's blockchain. The difference is that we don't have people. We have machines to verify transactions. He was like, I like this blockchain, right? So I think when we look at a network of truth and transparency, how do we look at all these people's projects, reward them for what they're doing, and find a way to collaborate. Because at the end of the day, a rising tide floats all boats.
I love that. That's one of my favorite sayings. So since you so eloquently were able to define blockchain, let's have you define what's an NFT.
Yeah, I mean, that's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I think really at the end of the day, it's a certificate of authenticity. That's usually where I just drop it for most people. Way I look at this, as you know, in the very beginning, I remember Cody came to me and he was like, "Hey, there's this guy I want you to introduce you to. His name is William Intrican. William is actually the founder of what was at the time EIP 721, which once it was approved is now ERC 721, which is what people call NFTs." But the idea it was really interesting because there's some things in life that don't need to be divisible, right? So the 721 protocol gave us, for the first time, a capability of having a token that wasn't fungible, that wasn't divided, right? It's like, if I have a car and I get in a divorce with my wife, I'm not going to cut the car in half. Like, somebody's going to get the car. So some things in life need to have things that represent, so that's why I say a certificate of authenticity is a really great way to look at it. I look at these NFTs as they relate to the ocean as ways to have buckets of data. And those buckets of data can have even ERC20 tokens attached to them if I so choose at some point in the future. But I think it's really interesting because as we look at climate data, we look at ocean data over a long period of time and who owns that data, these could be really great tools, and we're actually kind of betting the farm that they will be good tools to be able to understand what our ecosystem is doing, what it has done, and where we're going.
Yeah, so thank you for taking it back to the theme of the panel, which is how can we drive climate action with NFTs? So talk a little bit about some of the projects that you're involved with. Yeah,
so I'm always like really moved by what people are working on, and as an artist, I think that's where we get our inspiration. Like we want to tell a story, but we want to tell a story that can evoke some kind of emotion. There's a difference between good art and bad art, but then there's just art, right? But then you walk into a room and you see something and it makes you cry, it makes you angry, it makes you frustrated, it makes you disgusted. All of those things are acceptable responses to art because it evokes some kind of emotion, right? And so for me, one of the first projects that I did was I collaborated with Grammy-nominated artist BT, who's the godfather of trance music, along with some other folks, amazing human beings, and we focused on chemical weapons that had been left in the ocean. And I had previously been working with a team in Hawaii. We got some legislation passed. Well, it wasn't legislation. I'll back that up. It was a House resolution that was passed in the state of Hawaii.
So tell us what's happening with chemical weapons in the ocean.
Yeah, so since 1918, we've dumped over 1.8 million tons of chemical and conventional weapons into the ocean because it is illegal for you to own, transfer, manufacture chemical weapons, biological weapons for obvious reasons. So what do you do when you have them? Well, the legal framework that has been defined in The Hague says, you know what, you can actually just dump them in the ocean. And as they would say in England, Bob's your uncle. Except for the fact that over time, these canisters start to corrode and rust. And what do you think happens when that happens? These become point source emitters. And so even if we did all of the things inside SDG 14, which is life below water from the UN framework, we would not hit any of those targets because we're slowly poisoning all of these assets that I think of them as assets, because without them, we don't exist.
It's like ticking time bombs.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So the goal is go in there, remove them, neutralize them, and dispose of them in a healthy way. And so we were able to get the leadership in Hawaii to be on board with this, and we passed this resolution. So now we have a physical framework that we can actually work with. And so what was really cool about it was that I was like, wow, this is like all these people are coming together. And so I made some NFTs called null void, right? Because from computer programming language, when you have a variable that has no data, it becomes null void, right? And that's what I want with these chemical weapons. Right now, they're a variable that needs to go away, and if we remove them, they become null and void. So that was that first project. That was really the first NFT for impact for the ocean. BT and I did, and then this last one that we just launched on Doing Good, which is on doinggood.com right now.
It's available for purchase.
Yeah, it's called Mangrove, and the idea was like when we're programming, before we actually write our first lines of code, we imagine what could be, right? We're like, well, I'm going to make an application that does whatever, right? But I thought, well, what if we turned it back the other way? What if we could write code for the climate? What if we could actually make something that would ultimately turn into a tree that would sequester carbon and all these other things? So I came up with this idea, and I'm old school. Like, so before the internet, like, we had these things called BBSs, bulletin board systems, and you'd dial into another computer, and you'd send a message to somebody, and then they had these other things later on, late at night, that they'd send to another BBS, and you're like, wow, I sent this to Texas, which I'm still in. Right?
So you're really outing yourself as like an old school nerd.
I'm so old, guys.
You're a nerd.
Old.
You've been a nerd forever.
Dude, I'm so old that I had my anniversary the other night, and the guy who drove us to the restaurant could have been my son. That's how old I am. That freaks me out a little bit.
You're not that old.
Yeah, I'm so old. Anyway, but back then we didn't have all the graphics capabilities that we have now, so we used ASCII art. And so I decided, well, what if I could actually take three-dimensional mangroves and turn them into ASCII art? And the reason why mangroves is that mangroves sequester up to 30 to 50 times the carbon of terrestrial forests, but they're also a nursery for fisheries, and they also prevent coastal erosion. Amazing, amazing superpowers, right? So I thought, well, what if I code a tree, and then as people collect the tree and they trade the tree, those funds start to help the groups that are actually have got boots on the ground actively planting forests. And I was really moved by a group of people who are actively doing this at Virgin Unite. I think as of right now, they've raised probably $9 million or so on their own. And I just want to be able to support people who are doing good things, because the last thing I want to do is start another nonprofit. Because first of all, I hate nonprofits because I feel like I just don't like the model. But I think that we can amplify people who are doing really good stuff so that they can do the good things and not have to go campaigning for money later on.
Amazing. So how many trees?
How many trees? Oh, I mean, for sale?
Yeah. The
so
NFTs.
Yeah, I think there's 5 left that are up there. And yeah, so it's I think for me, what's interesting about that particular piece is that, you know, in talking with BT on the last one, like, he really got me in the audio zone, like, just thinking. So I actually brought different stems. See, I'm even using the music language now. Before I didn't have that before, because BT was like, dude, they're called stems. So I have different birds that usually make their homes inside mangroves. Then I've got the sound of the ocean. And so when all of them are playing together, you have a complete surround sound of what it's like to be inside the mangrove forest.
Incredible. Wow. And so is there any place that we can go and experience this?
Well, it is going to be traveling. That's a good question. But it was at Miami Art Basel this year.
I wonder where else it could possibly go on display.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Actually, that's a really good question, because I'm doing a horrible job asking you. But one of the things about this is that how do you take NFTs and bring it into the real world? And you just started like basically a boutique to get people interested in this. Like,
yes.
I'm gonna put my interview hat on now. So how did this get started with you and having this boutique?
NFT boutique in Tulum.
Tell me.
Yes, it's well, it started with basically collections, developing my collection, the Cosmic Cats 420 collection, which I'm still working on, and I kind of went crazy developing merchandise. I have a cosmic cat tree that I put a lot of fur and bells and whistles for the cats, because I've been taking care of cats and
Why
fostering
cats?
cats.
Tell me the cats.
I'm kind of passionate about cats and the ocean also, and just taking care of cats. It happened kind of organically in Tulum, and and my partner.
Is there a lot of cats in Tulum?
There is a lot of cats.
Because when I was in Chile, they had dogs everywhere, and sometimes people put.
There's also dogs everywhere.
Okay,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. They put I remember they used to put like clothes on the dogs because they were afraid they were going to get cold.
Wow, no. Unfortunately, animals are not quite that well taken care of there, and
that could be an NFT.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so lots of stray cats, and I started taking care of cats, and my partner was already very into NFTs. Chucho, I think he might be listening. Hi, Chucho. And so he asked me at one point, what would be your NFT collection? And because I had a lot of cats on the brain, it just kind of came to me. So Cosmic Cats 420 was born, and I started making merchandise related to Cosmic Cats 420, the cat tree. and we started to, I went to Art Basel, and one of my cats was on display, and also for the benefit of an ocean foundation, Jacques Cousteau. And so we were talking when we got back about a need for merchandising and where we could display my cosmic cat tree. And he happened to have a storefront in Tulum. And we decided to transition that and make the NFT boutique. So and everyone is welcome to come visit. It's a really exciting place to be.
So how do you find the connection between people who come in, maybe have zero understanding about NFTs, what they are, and they're coming right into this boutique? Like, what's the transition and the adoption look like?
Yeah, well, I think the beauty of NFTs, and you were touching a little bit on art, just being this wonderful vehicle and medium for to rally around different causes, yeah, just it's fun, and I think it's just a really good entry point for any level of person that's walking in. I mean, we've got kids that walk in and they love what they see, so they're already very interested in the art, what's behind the art. We do a lot at the boutique in terms of the merging the IRL to the digital world. So we are developing and designing experiences, that are related to NFTs. So, for example, we have an ATV out front. So we have what we're calling the Pet Caserito Razor experience. And basically what that is you can rent the ATV with crypto. You will go on a journey to go have some coconuts at a beach that we have access to. From there, if you want, you can collect plastic. That's also a very big theme of the boutique. And if you bring back the plastic, you'll be rewarded with a taco and an ice cream, and then you get
You had me at taco.
And then you get the NFT. We're still deciding on what the name of it, but like basically a proof of experience NFT, which is the razor. So yeah, and the plastic collection is something that's a very big thing that we do as well. We've got Pinky, the cosmic plastic cat, which is outside the boutique, and he eats plastic, and all of that plastic goes to a company in Mexico called Pet Gas, which has an innovation that transforms all plastic into clean fuels. So that plastic is not going to end up in the ocean or in the fish of a whale or in the belly of a whale or of a bird. So we're very motivated by that reason and to save the ocean.
That's super cool. Great, awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it in person.
You're going to have to come, and we're going to have to talk about a special maybe collection display of mangroves, which would be really fun to see on the walls of the boutique.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And there's a lot of there is actually a mangrove project that's actually happening in Tulum. So it'd be really cool to kind of link those guys in as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that we see a lot in Tulum is the destruction of the mangrove forests, and just so much influx of people and growth that's really surpassing the ability of the infrastructure to handle it. So the one nice thing that has happened, or since I've been there, there really are so many different groups that are environmentally focused and motivated. Regen Tulum is a very big group that is all about funding regenerative projects in Tulum. So I think the mangrove forest would be very interesting for them. And also Tulum Coin just launched by a group of people. But another thing that we're doing at the boutique is we have the More Women in Crypto group, and one of the women from that group has been really leading the charge for Tulum Coin. And again, all of those projects are meant to fund regenerative projects in Tulum.
Super cool. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to check it out.
Can't wait to have you.